The video I've prepared for you is to show some of the things that I've learnt so far as an undergraduate student, and some of the strategies that I've learnt and my stance on teaching. On my third year of placement, I was a part of a prep classroom, which taught me a lot about catering for various personalities and factors external to academic teachings. This correlated with the ETP402 standard of demonstrating knowledge and understanding of physical, social and intellectual development and characteristics of students and how these may affect learning. Every lesson of every day saw the students need to be reminded of the rules that were put in place to ensure that there was a safe and quiet atmosphere for special learning time. The OSVAL strand for personal development relates in that students learn to control their impulses by developing habits and routines that help them as a cooperative member of the classroom. Such things as only answering questions of students who have their hand up, working on stamina to remain quiet, so for a 10-minute period of time students would be as quiet as they can during an activity that doesn't require communication, being a 5-star listener, stop looking and listening, repeating back claps after the teacher has clapped, and things like that. Author and educator Parker Palmer believes that it's the teacher's responsibility to construct an atmosphere of togetherness, develop an appreciation of the value of otherness as well. In this classroom there were a number of mental disabilities, including low-functioning autism and hypersensitivity, which made me somewhat nervous about conducting my lessons and ensuring that those students understood my instruction and weren't upset by any aspect of the lesson. In order to accommodate for this though, after my explanation of the task at hand, I would explain it one more time, but in shorter and more concise points so that they had easy to follow steps. It was also illustrated to the children that sudden loud noises weren't acceptable. So whenever I had to do something loud to grab attention, I would give a gentle warning to those children before I did so to avoid triggering an episode. This correlates with Palmer's theory of holding tension in life-giving ways, meaning to understand the differences in others and learn from them to gain a new perspective and understanding, as some students wouldn't be affected by sudden loud noises, but they need to understand that others do and to be mindful of that. Together as a grade we made rules for the classroom to make it a safe and peaceful environment for everyone. The students were asked what they believe some classroom rules should be, and this gives them the power for every student to be heard and the responsibility to respect the rules that they came up with on their own. Communicating with the grade and emphasising constantly that we were a community and united as a year level created a sense of belonging for the children, which enabled them to bond with each other and build friendships. In terms of personal development, I learned that when students start to adopt lessons as special learning time, they started to see themselves as learners within that space. And at the conclusion of a lesson, when students would reflect on their work and show what they'd accomplished to the other students, they were proud of their efforts. We encouraged the students to start their opening sentence for the class to be, "I'm proud of my work because," which helped to verbally express their feelings with the class. This expression often caught the attention of other students, as I would remind them of how it felt when others listened to the work that they'd been proud of on a separate occasion, which triggered empathy and altruism in the students. Implanted within the ETP402 standards for graduate teachers is the standard 2.3, which is to be able to use the curriculum, assessment and reporting knowledge to design learning sequences and lesson plans. I believe that this is an area I've become far more practiced in this year, and I feel increased confidence and comfortability in this aspect of my teaching. On my last rounds, I devised a unit of work on angles for 3-4 students. This involved firstly what I would teach in my lessons based on school curriculum, and OSVAL standards I would use to advise what outcome I wanted for the students at the conclusion of the unit. I used backwards planning to assist me in what direction I needed for each lesson proceeding to lead to, and what steps needed taking in order to achieve ultimate success of the unit. Once I decided on the outcome of the unit, I then planned what formative and summative assessments I would implement in the unit that would give me the chance of identifying the students' strengths and weaknesses, so that I may also be able to alter lesson plans to best support their content knowledge and understanding. Once I had the foundations of the unit planned, I then looked at students' abilities in mathematics to gauge which students, I thought might be more likely to need guidance in understanding the brand new concepts that we were learning about. A small group focus is something I've learnt to be of great importance, and an area I've been focusing more and more. Whilst it's very useful for bringing students, who are struggling up to speed, it's also been an opportunity to extend the knowledge of brighter students and build relationships in smaller groups. Using small groups has also been effective in assessment practices, as you can record students' development and understandings through questioning within the group environment. At the beginning of every lesson, I would have the learning intention either written on the whiteboard or the smartboard for the children to read, and would say it out loud to further emphasize the lesson's purpose. The first lesson looked at students becoming acquainted with the different types of angles and doing a simple worksheet to practice identifying obtuse, right and acute angles. Whilst this form of activity seems quite traditionalist, I think that there is a place in the classroom for traditionalist teaching and learning. Whilst I am more of a progressive, I believe more a progressive style of teaching, sometimes I think traditionalist needs to also be present in the classroom. But as I'm saying, this was a double lesson. I had them finish the worksheet and then look for acute, obtuse and right angles in their classroom environment. So a bit more hands-on. This helped them to back up their learning from the first hour and also make them able to identify these angles in their environment and, sort of connect with reality a bit more, like how you connect it with reality. Sorry. Mitchell Moore, a math tutor at Macquarie College, believes this process enables the learner to join together their newly learnt information with the world around them and see things from like a new perspective. Next, I would explain how the skill is executed, running through key terms of the subject, then modelling it for the students so that they can see firsthand the process involved. This is also useful for accommodating for more visual learners. Students then go to the desks and work individually to complete the set task. Others may be called to work in a focus group for me to solidify any misunderstandings they might have. By the end of the unit, I aim to have students know and classify the different types of angles, make an educated estimation of the angle, and to measure the angles to the nearest degree using protractors, except for the level 3 students, which for them it wasn't a requirement. AITSL Standard 2.4 says to demonstrate broad knowledge of, understanding of, and respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories, cultures and languages. I was a part of a 3-4 grade Indigenous Inquiry unit that began with a Lotus diagram to demonstrate how much the children already knew about Aboriginal culture, history and traditions. They used this chart to decide on what they'd like to research and explore further. There were a range of different tools to engage the students on the topic, such as The Rabbits by John Marsden, that worked well in drawing empathy from the students. Another aspect of the unit was the incursion, in which the Indigenous speaker came in with lots of traditional Aboriginal tools, books, and he shared his extensive knowledge with the students that helped them gain, historical knowledge about, but also a contemporary perspective. The overarching theme of the unit was to understand the significance of Indigenous Australians' culture now and the significance of their past in relation to the present. Students were given iPads, laptops, and various books in order to find their own information, with teachers roving around to help, assist any students having trouble researching the topic of their choice. This enabled the students to, take a bit more responsibility for their work and be independent learners. The style of learning environment we hope to create was a progressive style in which students would find their information and give a short detail of how it made them feel, and if they could change something about that era, what might they change. The things we avoided during the sessions were things like depicting stereotypical representations of Aboriginals, doing meaningless tasks such as, painting a boomerang, and only focusing on Aboriginal life prior to European settlement without contexts. Some things we aim to achieve during this unit were teaching Aboriginal studies and perspectives through recommended sources and approaches including, learning from Aboriginal people, so that was the incursion. Embedding Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories and cultures across the curriculum, not separate from the core content, and not in a Tolkienistic sort of way. Understanding and valuing Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander experiences and issues, so past, present and future. And to also make it relevant to the school. So thank you for listening to my presentation on my experiences thus far, and I expect that my teaching stance will change from new experiences and environments that I'll be working in. Thanks. Dookie dookie boop. Hurry up.